Good afternoon. Well, as you can see, I'm currently in my golf attire, and that's because I've spent the morning playing golf with a friend and a couple of my friend's colleagues. I played pretty well today. Wasn't my PB, but I was a few shots off, and I could see where in the gameplay I could have improved today to have got it pretty much to a PB score. I've actually been playing quite a lot of golf recently. I hope any golfers that are watching this have been making the most of those sunny spells to get out on the course, because the weather has been up and down here in the UK, as you'd expect in springtime, April showers as they say. I have been making the most of that opportunity, apart from once after the Masters, which for anybody that isn't a golfer, the Masters is possibly the biggest golf tournament in the world. And following on from that tournament, the weekend after, the weather here in the UK was treacherous, and we all had an itch. We all wanted to go out and play golf, and so even though it was raining really heavily, we put our waterproofs on and we went out and we played a round of golf, and that was quite challenging. The golf score on that day wasn't so great, we will ignore that one. It was really tricky and not an ideal environment to be playing in. But yeah, it's been nice to get out, and I actually had the opportunity on Wednesday to go and play at a corporate day at Sunningdale Golf Course. We played the old golf course. I was there as a guest of my dad, and it was the BCA Golf Day, which I think is the British Kart Association. And they've been doing this now for, I think, over 20 years, maybe even longer. It's a really nice event to be a part of, and it's my second year that I've had the opportunity to go and play with. Fantastic group of people, and we lucked out with really nice weather. I think a couple of the chaps that were playing, I think in the same team, got 2 eagles, which, if you're not a golfer, is just very good. And so, yeah, they took the win, of course, as you'd expect if you're getting that kind of luck on the golf course. And we had some really nice food as well afterwards. Scott from Suster and Hicks was there, and also Dan from DNA, who I recently attended an event with in London. And so there were some familiar faces there as well, which was nice. I'm gonna try and get some more dates in the diary, basically, because this year I'm focusing on just trying to get my round in the 80s. And if I can get my handicap down to single figures, then I'll be a very happy boy. And that is a big ask of myself, because in terms of numbers, for anyone that's not into golf, I was shooting 34 shots over par, and the aim is to shoot under 10 shots over par. And so it's not a million miles away. I think within the next kind of like 18 months, it might be realistic for me to try to put a bit of pressure on myself, try and get single figure handicap, which is quite a large improvement over a shortish period of time. But that's the goal I'm setting myself, and I'm gonna work on having some lessons and just trying to dial in on my game. But anyway, enough golf chat, because I'm sure there's lots of people out there, including my lovely wife, that's sick and tired of hearing about golf. And today I'm going to get out because we're nearly at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, which is actually the perfect time to go and inspect your hive in the spring months, because it tends to be the hottest time of the day. And one of the things that we need to be considerate of when opening up the hive in the slightly colder months, so spring, as we're coming into autumn, is the temperature. We need to be looking at temperatures between sort of 12 to 15 degrees as a minimum temperature you want it to be. Today we're sitting at 14, so we're just about okay. And yeah, we're gonna bounce on the opportunity to get out and do a part inspection. Today I'm going to be looking to see whether we can get the super on, which when we go out there I'll talk to you a little bit more in detail about what we're doing, why we're doing it, and essentially I'm going to do a voiceover because it's quite windy out there today, and I just know from talking on recent videos that it's really blowy, it's really noisy, and it's just going to be a little bit more pleasurable for you guys to listen to a video without all of the wind noise coming through, and I'll just film me cracking on getting it done. And so we'll head out now and we'll be doing the first inspection of 2023. As you can see, it's a lovely clear blue sky today, which means that it's the perfect opportunity to get out to do our first inspection of the colony. It's a little bit windier than we would have liked, but the first job today was to head into the shed and grab out all of the necessary equipment that I was going to need to undertake today's tasks. This right here is a super. There's no guarantee that this will actually be used today, but I wanted to get it out, get it cleaned and prepared, because the least amount of time spent in the hive, the less interrupted the bees are, the happier they are, and the better the colony will grow and build up their stores. And so this first task consists of predominantly just tidying and cleaning up old propolis and some wax that's been left over at the end of the season. Everything's gone a little bit more brittle now, so it's a lot easier to scrape off with my hive tool. Now, some of you may know that I don't have a national hive, which is typically the beehives that we use here in the UK. I actually have an Australian Langstroth, and this is from a company called HIVE, and these right here are the patented flow frames that allow us to draw honey straight from the hive. I'm just getting rid of any old beeswax that's been left on these frames. I did actually put these out for the bees in say early autumn, just to give them a last little feed, and it also meant that they cleaned these up pretty well themselves. But these are just some combs that were left, that were drawn out, that again have gone nice and brittle now, easy for me to scrape off, as you can see. And I'm just removing any propolis that was missed or was a little bit sticky at the end of the season. Quite a satisfying process, I must say. Something that you may have noticed on social media is you'll see a lot of beekeepers not actually wearing any protective equipment. All bees are very different. Some colonies are quite calm and some a little bit more aggressive. I would say that particularly at the start of the season, they are very calm, and as they build in their size or the weather changes and they get a bit agitated, they can't forage, then they can get a little bit more aggressive. But predominantly what you see on social media are swarms, and when bees are swarming, they tend to be in a much calmer state. They're not trying to protect anything, and so what you'll find is the bees are a lot less aggressive, and you're very unlikely to get stung via a swarm, which is something that I don't think many people know. But when you're sticking your hands in their home where they have brood and a queen, then of course they're going to be a bit more protective and a little bit more aggressive. So whenever I'm going to my colony, I always stick on the protective equipment necessary, because they have stung me through my bee suit before and it isn't a pleasant experience. And so prevention over cure and all of that. And so that is why I am fully kitted up when I visit the ladies in the hive. So right now you can see that I'm loading my smoker. I use paper to start the flames and just to get the smoker warmed up. I'll then look at adding some wood chip. I just purchased these offline, and then I'll finish this off in a second, you'll see, with grass. And the reason why I put the grass in on the top is simply to avoid any embers being pumped out of the nozzle and going onto the bees, because that wouldn't be very kind and it might burn them. And so that is why I put grass on the top of my smoker. The aim of a smoker is actually to try to create a lot of smoke, but you want it to be quite cool. So we're looking to achieve a cool smoke, not a hot smoke. And the way in which this is achieved is by basically monitoring the amount of air that you're allowed to flow through it. So you're not really trying to burn it up, get it really hot. You're just trying to keep it smoking. This will probably last me anywhere from half an hour to an hour. So all of our equipment has now been tidied up and cleaned, which means that we have everything to hand that we may need as we go into doing our first inspection of the season. Now, one thing I must add at this point is I have of course been going over and taking a look to see what activities taking place on the landing board, and I have seen that the bees have been taken in pollen, which is always a good sign. It doesn't necessarily mean that they have a queen. They still would be bringing in pollen if they were hopelessly queenless. Of course, eventually they would die out, and so this isn't a guarantee. We're going to look today to see if there are any eggs, larvae, if they've got any honey flow. We're going to be checking the varroa tray at the back. We're also going to be looking and doing checks on the bees' health, and of course making sure that they are in good, strong numbers. The woodland's starting to look really nice. We've had the snowdrops this year, and this sea of green that you're looking at the moment is actually cow parsley. So you may notice that on my stand there is a bit of wood. That's one of the concerns that I have had with having my colony amongst the ash tree. Branches falling down. I think last year we had a branch that did actually hit the top of the hive and it split it, and so I did a repair job on that, and yeah, that looked like it was a close call. The first job today is to remove my entrance reducer. An entrance reducer and mouse guard is often installed in the autumn months when the flowers have finished blooming and there isn't much crop or stores for other bees and wasps to feed from. You'll often get robber bees and wasps that will try and enter the hive to essentially help themselves to honey, and by putting the reducer on means that the guard bees that sit on that landing strip have got more chance of stopping any unwanted guests coming in and taking their much needed winter stores. Now, before we actually open the colony up, one of the first things that I always do is remove the varroa tray, just to see if we can take a look at the count to make sure that the numbers are relatively low. We always expect to see an element of varroa mite, but this I was not expecting to see at all. I was very shocked to feel the weight of this as I was pulling it out, and this was a really worrying sign, and I was actually really shocked at this stage that there were bees coming and going from this colony, because as you can see there is a sea of water, and that is bad news, because one thing that you do not want in your hive is condensation, because moisture means the bees will get wet and cold, and when they get cold they will die. And so to have that much water in the tray was really concerning, and obviously my next job was to find out what is causing that amount of water to enter the tray. And so my first guess was that potentially that split that I just referenced on the roof had moved, because as temperature gets hotter and colder, of course wood can move, and perhaps then a gap had been created and water was getting through and was falling through the colony, which meant I was also kind of expecting to see that a few frames had been completely ruined. So I went and grabbed a spare roof from my second hive, and I also went and cleaned and washed the hive tool as well as the tray, because that stagnant water absolutely stank. So I pushed back in the tray and then reinstated the vent. I'm currently actually sticking the vent, not allowing any airflow to come through from the bottom, because it is a bit colder. It will mean that they're able to keep the hive a little bit warmer, a little bit easier. At the moment, I've actually put it on the wrong way. I do go back later on and I change that around. So the plastic bag that you can see on top is a completely licked clean packet of Ambrosio, which is the fondant that I put on just before Christmas. So it looks like they took that down very well, which I'm sure helped with the expansion that you're just about to see. I was very surprised to see this amount of bees this early on in the season, but they've been doing incredibly well, and as you can see the numbers are looking really nice and strong. So it was a really promising start, and I hadn't seen anything at this point that was making me feel that there were any issues with the roof and water getting through. So as you can see, if you look between each frame, you'll see wall-to-wall bees working hard, doing all kind of jobs around the hive, anything from nurse bees feeding the larvae to foragers bringing in pollen, and of course the queen is amongst there, well, at least we hope, laying eggs. So many people ask, why do we smoke bees? Well, there are a few reasons why. I'm led to believe that one of the reasons is to block the queen's pheromones, and that is to stop the bees from attacking me, the beekeeper, during the inspection. The second reason is apparently because it leads the bees to believe that there is a fire, which means that they drop down to get their stores, which of course in return means that the bees move out the way, so you're less likely to squash them whilst you're doing your inspection. So it is indeed to help the bees, and it doesn't cause them, as long as the smoke's not hot and you're not blowing embers on them, it doesn't cause the bees any harm. So right here you'll see that we have a mixture of honey stores, capped and uncapped. You'll see that we have the drone cells, which are the protruding capped cells, as well as worker bee cells, and the honey stores are slightly lighter in colour. Wind started to really pick up at this point, and so I wanted to get this done nice and quickly, and so to give the bees a little bit more protection, I chucked a towel over the top just in the second half of the hive where I wasn't going to be inspecting. So right here, I'm just having a quick look to see if I can see the queen. I'm also just inspecting the bees' wings and ensuring that there isn't any diseases that are present. So now the queen's laying really nicely. We're getting wall-to-wall brood, which is exactly what you want for a strong colony. I thought I'd quickly give you a closer look at the bees. So this right here again is pretty much wall-to-wall brood with the honey stores along the top of the frame. And again, those little protruding cells that you can see that look a little bit more like ball shapes, they're drone cells. They just need to be a little bit bigger. So today we're not going to be working through every single frame. The purpose of today is to try to decipher whether they need the super on top. And a super is essentially where the bees will be storing their honey. I stick the queen excluder in between the brood box, which is the box at the bottom, and the super, which is the box at the top. And that stops the queen from going up into the super and laying eggs, because of course we do not want to be consuming honey that has had the queen laying eggs in. At this point I'm going back to investigate why was there water in my hive, and I stumbled across this. What you're looking at right here is the work of a woodpecker. So during the winter months, of course, food starts to get depleted and the birds start looking for food as and where they can. And of course, one of those places, particularly in green woodpeckers, is the beehive. And so there are many things that you can do to try to prevent this, such as put chicken wire around the hive. And unfortunately, because this was at the back of the hive and in the handle, I hadn't actually spotted it. So I'm not sure when this had happened. I hadn't seen it on the previous month that I was out here looking, and so I think this is relatively recent. Because it was really windy today and I'd already been in the hive, I didn't want to spend any longer doing this, and so temporarily what I'm doing is using a silver foil to cover up the hole. I'm then going to use a 2-pack wood filler, which I'll then put on top of the foil. The reason why I'm doing this is because I want to make sure that the bees are not having direct contact with the 2-pack filler. I will then put the foil back over the top of the filler, which means that eventually when I get around to changing this box over, I can just peel off this tape and it will take the 2-pack with it, and it will stop the bees from getting hold of that 2-pack filler and trying to kick it out of their hive. And so this is just a temporary fix until next week or the week after, or whenever I get the chance to basically move all of the frames from this box into a new box and take that box away for a proper repair job. Another reason why I don't want to do this today is because we will be transporting the queen during this move, and so I'd like to make sure that it was on a little bit of a calmer day, not so windy. We don't want any accidents happening for sure. And so I just undertook this task, got it finished and complete, and that concluded our first inspection of the beehive
2023, and I have to say it's pleasantly surprised. I think the bees are looking incredibly healthy, they're doing really well, they're building up strong stores, loads of brood, and the only downfall really was the fact that a woodpecker had tried to gain access, but it seems to have not done any damages to the frame or managed to get its hands on any, or its beak should I say, any honey.
Yesterday's inspection went really well, and of course I'll keep you updated on the progress of the bees throughout the next couple of months, and then obviously as we come into the summer months we may get an early spring harvest, which will be really exciting. The colony size, as I mentioned, was looking really good out there, and so I think that there might also be an opportunity this year to split the colony, which means we'll end up with 2 colonies and 2 beehives, which is just a way of controlling swarm. So the sort of like basis of bees are they grow, they expand, and when they get so large for the space they're in, they will break themselves and split themselves down, which is of course what we call swarming. And so beekeepers try to control swarming. It doesn't sit too well with neighbours, and of course if we can look after and care for the bees, they're less likely to catch diseases and not survive winters, because that is one of the threats that faces wild bees. And so by doing a split myself, it means that I'm reducing the chance of any swarming this year. And it is a little bit of a joke within the bee industry that once you start, you just can't stop. And there are beekeepers with like 20, 30 hives in their gardens because they just keep on breaking down and splitting. But something that I've found is there is often always a beekeeper within the society that is willing to take the bees off you, because as I mentioned, there are some years that colonies don't survive. And so I guess it's kind of like chopping and changing and sharing, and just to ensure that we're elevating the bee population as much as possible. And so I guess that community in itself, we kind of work together, we've got contact with one another. And so if anybody's looking for a nuke, which is a word that we call basically a small colony, or even if it is a full-size colony, then there are people that are always readily available to take those off your hands. I mean, I was pretty much one of those guys. I was looking to take on bees. I just got very fortunate that a swarm happened to land next door to me. But anyway, this morning I'm going to be heading down to London for a breakfast event with Globetrotter. For anybody that aren't familiar with Globetrotter, I think they were established in like the 1800s, and they do beautiful traditional trunk style suitcases, and they now have a create your own function online, so fully customizable suitcases. And we're going to go down because a few weeks ago I had the opportunity to build my own case, and today I'm going to go and see it and pick it up for the first time. So I'm really looking forward to that. We're going to jump on the train, head down to London, meet the team and pick up that case. We just finished off at the Globetrotter event, which was a lovely way to spend the morning. It was great to see some familiar faces as well. There's so much history that Globetrotter actually has, and so I'm looking forward to delving in and learning more about that. When we get back home, I'll show you my new suitcase. I went for a carry-on, and so now I feel like I need to get the check-in bag to go with it, because it just would make a lovely set.
But I think for the rest of the afternoon, I'm actually going to do a little bit of shopping for some black tie shoes, so perhaps some opera pumps or just some nice Oxfords, just something to wear for an upcoming event that I need to wear black tie for. I just fancy something a little bit different to what I've been wearing to previous black tie events, and so I'm going to go on a hunt for those today. I'd love to go into John Lobb and see what those guys have, and there are a few other little stores as well that I want to check out that I've not been to before, so that is the plan of action. I will check up with you when we get back and I'll show you this globetrotting case.
Mr. Lynn and Gordon collecting the very many things that I buy from antique shops willingly.
It's a bit too light for my liking.
Well, for me it's perfect.
Well, it is currently a new week and Liz and I had a lovely weekend. We went over to the Cotswolds on the weekend to have some food with some friends, and we actually went to the Feathered Nest, which is a pub restaurant that we've not been to before, and I have to say it was fantastic. The food was incredible. The actual pub itself had a really nice vibe to it. They had a lovely open inglenook fireplace with nice Chesterfield chairs. I actually should have taken some footage whilst we were in there, but we took the dogs down with us. We went for a nice walk around and it was a lovely weekend. However, I just wanted to quickly take a moment to talk about the bits that I picked up after the Globetrotter event. So before we get stuck into that, let me show you my case that I did actually customise before heading into London, a few weeks before actually. I think it takes about 4 weeks for you to get your case. There will be more information online. I'll leave a link in the description box down below so you can get the exact information. Really, really love it, so happy with it. And if I drop you down a little bit, it might be a bit easier. Here she is. So as you can see, it's on 4 wheels and it is styled to look very much like a trunk. I went for the natural straps and handles because this will kind of patina a little bit like LV does with their bags. So this will sort of darken up, and as it ages it will just become more and more beautiful. I've then gone for the brass hardware and buckles. I also went for a burgundy trim, so this right here you can have in like different metals and different colours. I just thought it worked really nicely against the brown. And then if I quickly open this up inside, you'll see that I think it was called, I want to say oatmeal. It might have just been called natural, but the lining inside that I went for, as you can see, a nice neutral colour palette. This is a suitcase that is a carry-on. It's going to fit around about sort of like 4 to 6 outfits in it, and of course if you wanted to stick your laptop and stuff in here you would be able to do that. I know that as a case it does look really heavy. It's actually not that heavy at all, which of course is something that we need to be considerate of whilst we're travelling with weight restrictions. And then of course we've got the telescopic handle as well, and then another leather handle on top. And then if I give you a close-up look here, you'll see that embossed on the top of the case here we have the Globetrotter logo. So that is my case, really happy with it, looking forward to going on some adventures with that. And then after the event I was actually located around the Savile Row area, and for an upcoming event I wanted to get some new black tie shoes, and so I was kind of on the hunt for that. And during my travels I was sort of jumping into stores, and I ended up having a shopping trip basically. A little bit unplanned, but I went into some stores that I've been meaning to go into for a long time, and one of those stores was the Anderson and Shepherd haberdashery, and I went in there and I was blown away. The store itself was absolutely stunning. They had some really, really nice spring summer pieces out. I was actually very tempted for quite a few pieces in there. But what I settled on was this wonderful jacket here. This is actually a travel jacket. It's a really, really functional jacket. If you look inside this flap here, you'll see that we have two compartments. We've got a compartment at the front, and then if I pull that back, we've got a compartment at the back. And then inside there, we also have a zipped compartment. So you've got 3 pockets there, obviously another 3 here. And then inside the jacket, you'll see that we are fully loaded again with pockets. So really happy with this. As it wears over time, it will relax a little bit. It will sort of fall a little bit nice around my silhouette, because at the beginning it's a little bit stiff. It's not too stiff, but it's got a little bit of structure to it. That will just naturally sort of fall into my body shape and become more and more comfortable the more I wear it. So this is functionally a travel jacket. I purchased this as an alternative to wearing a Mac. If I'm going into London and I wanted to wear this sort of colour, this is a jacket that I'll be pulling out my wardrobe. So it has a kind of utilitarian vibe. It's got that field jacket element to it with the 4 pockets on the front. That was my first pickup from Anderson and Shepherd, which, if you're not familiar, they are the King's Tailor. I'm not sure on the exact street this sat on, but I think it's just sat a little bit back from Savile Row and around the corner from Tom Sweeney, which we'll come to in a second. The fun didn't stop there. Whilst I was in there, I also saw some of these neckties, and as we're coming into the summer months, I want to be able to add a little bit of intrigue and sophistication to my looks. And so these are cashmere and silk. They're a blend, and I've gone for a red and a green. And essentially, this is not the right attire to do this with, but I'll just be able to wear this around my neck, a little bit of elevation around the neckline, and I think that these will work really nicely with linen shirts. If I'm wearing a jumper, I can also do that as well, and it just adds a nice little bit of colour and a little bit of detail to what could be quite a simplistic look. Another way of styling these is to do a double knot. So again, we just quickly rush through. Just sort of style it down like this. This is a little bit more formal, a bit more dressy. I probably won't wear it so much like this. I'll probably have it tucked in and just sort of have it worn around the neckline just to fill in that gap in between an open collar. So again, 2 colourways. We'll see how they go. If I might like them, I might not, but I thought whilst we're in there, such beautiful fabrics, I couldn't resist. That comprised my visit to Anderson and Shepherd. And then back to Tom Sweeney. I think I mentioned probably about a month or 2 ago that I had a fitting at Tom Sweeney's store and ordered a made-to-measure grey or charcoal 2-piece suit. I wanted something that was quite simplistic but also had a little bit of Tom Sweeney flair to it, and so this right here is the suit that I picked up the other day, and something that gives it that bit of a Tom Sweeney feel is the wide lapels. They really like accentuating the lapels there and also having a nice soft shoulder. So you can see there's no padding in this. The actual jacket itself is only partly constructed. So I think, yeah, we've got a lining just at the top of the back, and then at the bottom we've just completely unconstructed, which will work really nicely in the spring and autumn months because it won't be too warm. Grey is possibly a little bit more an autumn winter colour, and so I know that I was a little bit late in the season to be ordering this, but it was a suit that I needed in my wardrobe, and so that's why I decided to go for it. The wide lapels, they work really nicely. They just add a little bit of interest and intrigue into the look, and again we've just gone very simple with 2 buttons, and then the patch pockets on the front are just to sort of make the suit a little bit more casual. So this is a suit that I could wear dressed up, but also if I just wanted to wear the jacket on its own, I had the ability to do that, and I could wear it as a slightly more relaxed look. And then the trousers, this was something that I worked a little bit more closely on because I wanted to ensure that I was keeping true to my style and what I like, and so I persuaded the guys in there to work with a slightly wider and dropped crotch to ensure that I had more space around my leg. I also stuck a pleat in the front and had side adjusters put in. And of course, I put my PTUs on, permanent turn-ups. These are around about 4 to 5 centimetres. So a nice healthy turn up on those. The chaps in there were really happy with it when it came in, and so was I. So glad to finally have this back with me, and then I made my way down Savile Row, and I wanted to check out a couple of stores. So I went into Drake's. It looked like they had some really lovely stuff in there actually. I'd say Drake's probably leans a little bit more to like the smart casual side of things, and so I wasn't on the hunt for anything that day in particular, so I just had a little mooch around. And then next door, or a couple of doors down, and there was Cad and the Dandy, and I've wanted to go into that store for a short while now. We were passing a few weeks back when I went to do the Joseph Cheney and Son fitting, and when I looked in their display window, I was like, wow, those coats are incredible. So I wanted to go in, check out the clothing, and see what they had in for this season. And as I walked in, on the left, there were some shoes, and I thought, oh, perfect. They've got literally the opera pumps that I had in mind. So I was just having a look around. One of the gentlemen came over, and it was Arthur Sleeps, and they're quite a newish shoe company. They've been around now for about a decade. And he took me downstairs into the basement, showed me their manufacturing plant. I think they're the only company in the UK that are making shoes in London at the moment. I'm not 100% sure on that, so you'd have to fact check me there. But they were working away building these shoes in the basement, and so I thought, you know what, it might be quite nice to actually have some custom made opera pumps, because they're basically slippers and they'll be incredibly comfortable if they're made to the shape of my foot. They're ordered and I'm going to be picking them up this week, so super quick turnaround. They said to me that they could literally do them for the next day, which part of me was like, that's a bit too quick. And then the other part of me was like, that's really convenient. And so we'll see. We'll take a look at them, see how they are. I'm very hopeful that they're going to be really lovely and incredibly comfortable. After there, I decided to go down Burlington Arcade, and then I went across to Piccadilly Arcade as well, and I checked out Edward Green, which is another shoe company from Northamptonshire. I then stopped off at Bud, which are typically known as shirt makers, and I needed to pick something up that was pink for an event that Lydia and I are going to be doing. And so I decided to just go for something very subtle, because I'm not really somebody that wears much pink. I have a pink linen shirt, but apart from that, not much. And so I've gone for this kind of like powdery soft pink pocket square, and I thought it would just work really nicely tucked into a navy blazer. And so during our event I'm going to be able to wear that, and it's just going to be a nice little touch of pink to my look. And so I was having quite a successful day, and I decided that I'd done enough spontaneous shopping and I made my way back home. I think that was pretty much everything that I wanted to show you from my shopping trip. I think it is. And then, as you saw the following day, Lids had actually spotted a chair quite locally to where we live actually, and was like, do you know what, Ali, I think this would be perfect for your office. So you'll know that we were after a nice Chesterfield armchair, and we were struggling to find one that was kind of like hitting the mark, because obviously there are so many variations of brown, and there are also so many variations of chair styles. I found the odd chair here and there that I was like, that is lovely. I actually saw one in Beluti. It was just a casual £13,000, and so I wasn't wanting to dig that deep into my pockets to get an armchair for this room. And so we continued looking, and Lydia found the pinstripe chair that is currently sitting right next to me here. And I think it works really nicely. It just adds a little bit of softness into the room. It kind of also helps break out that repetitiveness of brown that's been incorporated with the wood in a room. And so it's going to be nice. I'm probably going to have a little footstool made. I don't know whether that'll be contrasting or whether we will have something done in the same fabric, but I'm happy with it. It has got wooden feet on it as well, so it does kind of tie in nicely there. And I think this morning I'm going to clear out the space in the corner of the room and actually put it in position. Another step closer to having this room complete. I spoke to Andy actually, who's doing the centre island, and he's making good progress on that. I think he's had my brass worktop delivered now, which is fantastic, because he had to have an external fabricator put that together with the rivets and everything. And so we are slowly getting there in this room now. So not long. I'm actually loving the rug from Eaton Square. It's not just comfortable in the room, it's really helps with the acoustic, but also when I come up here, it just feels so much more like cozy. It's amazing how such a simple thing can make such a big impact in a room. So we'll clear this area, get this chair pushed back into the corner, and I think then we'll be wrapping up today's video.
least we know that the striped material is what this room needs to like elevate it a bit.
Yeah.
But I think you need a bigger chair. I can have that in my dressing room, no problem. But I think you need a bigger chair.
Is this an accent chair?
Yeah, well, it's like a, yeah.
So you're not happy with this? Yeah. I think it needs to be bigger.
So hard to say without having like the island in place.
Yeah, because the island will eat up quite a lot of space.
Yes, but I do think that it needs to be like higher.
Right.
And a bit grander. Do you not think? I like the wicker, but it's too big as well. Next to that, it's too high. It's almost like the same size.
But if you had a bigger chair, it might be right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I like the wicker in there because it was nice and soft.
Yeah.
But
just a different material.
yeah, but at least we know, because this was kind of what she was suggesting for your blinds.
Right.
Like a striped linen, black and white striped linen, a grey and white stripe. But yeah, I think we can go bigger.
Well, that concludes that. We are not moving forward with the pinstripe chair in the corner of my room. Not because we don't like the chair or the finish or fabric of the chair, just simply because Lydia feels like it needs to be a little bit larger. So at least now we have a little bit more of an understanding of the size that we are looking for that space. And that chair will pretty much be replicated in a larger size in that corner. So I think you get a bit of a feel for what we're going for. And Lydia will be using that chair perhaps in her wardrobe or in another area around the house. So not all is lost. I feel like we've gained some knowledge in that practice. And I'll of course keep you updated. I feel like this is like the never-ending project, my wardrobe, but we are slowly getting there. And so I hope you all do have a lovely rest of the week, and I'll be seeing you next Wednesday at 5 p.m. Take care.